you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Oh my God, it's the Chris Voss Show! Ah! That's the first time I've ever done that. Hey folks, welcome to the Chris Voss Show. thechrisvossshow.com. I don't know, that's a kind of a new way to start it. We try and always improv the front of this thing. That's the first time I've done that in 12 years. So I don't know. Does that sound cool? I don't know. Does that sound cool, Corey? I don't know.
Man, that could have stripped the paint off the walls. It was so crazy in here. As far as that intro, wow, it's incredible. I was really impressed by that. Thanks, man.
I just made that up. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in once again. Go to the iTunes there and make a great referral to the show. Put down how much you love the show, how much you worship the show. Remember, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you completely, unconditionally. You won't get that from anybody but a dog. We love you unconditionally, but remember, just like unlike your family, we don't judge you. So that's even better. Unconditional love and no judgment. Yeah, where else the hell can you get that in life? I mean, even your dog will judge you. I mean, they'll still love you, but anyway, that's a whole different thing. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Go to all of our groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Sign up for that LinkedIn newsletter. That thing's killing it over there in a big 131,000 LinkedIn group and all that good stuff. Today we have an amazing author on the show. He's talking about his journey and some of the stuff he learned and what he does now to help other people. He is the author of a book that just came out December 8th, 2021. Take It Off, Revelations of a Male Exotic Dancer. Laine Hilton is going to be on the show with us today. He's going to be talking about everything he does, things he learned, and also how to help others with self-worth, et cetera, et cetera. He is a well-respected Canadian author and introspective influencer on the subject of self-worth. He has entertained thousands of clients internationally, spanning a 25-year career in the male exotic dance industry, unknowingly laying the groundwork for his raw, mission-driven message through a unique and colorful perspective. Utilizing his life experience and having dedicated extensive time researching self-worth, he is widely regarded by men over 30 who suffer from blocks related to unworthiness, egotism, and lack of emotional expression. He's a men's mental health advocate, and he challenges stereotypical definition of man enough. Welcome to the show, Corey. How are you?
Hey, thanks so much, Chris. I'm doing really good. That was a lot to unwrap, so I understood you stumbling there at the end of that one. But no, hey, I really appreciate you having me on the show. To be honest, it's an honor, and I've definitely listened to a few of your episodes from the past, so much respect. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, man. We really appreciate it. So give us your plugs, your .coms, where people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Sure, yeah, it's simple. Takeitoff.ca. I'm up here in British Columbia, Canada, in the Okanagan Valley, so that's the best place to go to catch my courses and my book. Of course, the book has been released now for the last couple of months, and it's really been awesome to be able to get the responses and the reviews and other people's perspectives on what I've wrote, because I believe a lot in getting other people's perspectives outside of just the lens that I see life through. So yeah, really, really cool actually all the way around. And this whole experience has been actually improving my creativity, which is one of my core values that provides me a lot of excitement in life. So when I was an entertainer back in the day, I had a lot of creativity, and it's been roughly 10 years now since I've been out of the industry. So when you kind of have that loss of that, you're kind of searching for it again later in life. And so through this process, I've been able to find that again and just using it in a different way than it was before. Before it was creative on the exterior. Now it's more creative on the interior, trying to make more of an impact and help others out with some of the struggles that I dealt with. So,
you know, the fun part about life, sometimes it doesn't seem fun at the time, but the great part about life is there's so many lessons we all go through, and there's so many journeys. And, you know, I learned a long time ago, life was like a giant catalog, and you got to choose what you wanted to do. And so I did. And, you know, I left the business you were in last. Chippendales finally put their foot down.
Oh man.
I'm actually friends with somebody who used to run Chippendales in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And we probably know him. And so these journeys we go on, you know, there's so many different lessons that we can learn in life. And then a lot of those lessons apply and can help other people that can do it. And sometimes, of course, life skills, being the teacher sometimes learns more than the students.
Oh man, but the thing is, Chris, is you have to be willing no matter what it is. If you're trying to get in better shape, you have to be willing. If you want to address your authenticity, you have to be willing. If you want to become the best version of yourself, you have to be willing, right? Like these are all things that I obviously preach, but I also practice as well. You can sit there and take notes about things all day long, but unless you're going to take action on those notes, and it's all for naught, right? So in my own way, through my own lens, I just saw something that was kind of gold. And to be completely straightforward, it was motivated by a lot of other people in my life that sat there and said, hey, Corey, you told me this insane story about this career of yours. I have no idea. Like, I would never want to do what you did, but oh my God, like, tell me more, right? So that was kind of my driver. It was like, okay, I've only journaled and documented 25 years of crazy ass stories on the Canadian side and the American side of the border. And I thought to myself at that time, I was like, what value do I have? I'm only a guy that took his clothes off for a living. What do I have to provide to the world, right? And that was that inner critic talking to me. It was just kind of saying, oh yeah, you're just this. And so when I started to take the steps and actually go and do the things that I used to do back when I was a dancer and be bold enough to take those steps and meet the right people and present myself the right way, doors started to open up. And it really started after I wrote the book, to be completely straightforward. Like, the writing process was really cool. But it was really the whole learning process of learning how to really write based on my authentic self, on my values, the feelings that were connected to those values. And that made a good book into something really, really great. And so now it's just expanding into more. It's turned into something that and I jokingly say this for the willing people that are willing to actually take my courses, is just simply, I'm going to show you mine, you show me yours. And I know that sounds a little creepy, but at the same time, I'm literally saying here, read all the crazy shit that I did. Read all the things that I'm going to be vulnerable about, all the pitfalls that I went through. You tell me if you can relate to any of those things. It's through a different lens, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that you're going to be able to relate to in there. So just, it's one of those things that it opens that door a little bit more when you're willing to go there, when you're willing to show that side of you. So that's what my hope is with this whole mission of Take It Off, is to get people to take off the layers of shit that's in their head, that's been programmed in there for their own entire life. And that's where it comes back to that man enough thing a little bit. Like, I kind of struggled with that, trying to be man enough, not wanting to cry, always trying to make sure, making sure that I didn't cry and show emotion, always trying to be the hunter-gatherer, putting all that pressure on myself. And in the end, it didn't do anything for me. In fact, it actually screwed me up in a lot of ways and didn't allow me to release emotions and really become a better version of me internally. So yeah, it's just been a really interesting process that liberated me from I guess you could say, the person that I was in my former career, in my former life. So a lot of people go through that since COVID. Like, I know that a lot of people have wrote books and they've done a lot of self-discovery journeys, and that's awesome. And I'm glad that people have, to be honest. But at the same time, for me, it was mandatory. I just didn't want to end up living like I was before and never really hitting that higher state of consciousness with people professionally, or for that matter, personally. So yeah.
And that's important. I mean, a life that's unlearned. There's some quote from this, so I'm going to butcher it because I don't know. I don't have it off the top of my head. But a life not learned, or a life unlearned, is a wasted life, I think is the quote, roughly. And, a lot of people go through life on autopilot. They just, whatever society tells them they do. I remember there's that famous scene that I love from Fight Club where, we're boys raised by, we're the first generation of boys raised by women. Is another woman really all we need? My dad told me to, go to school, get good grades. Okay, so I did that. Then I graduated high school, and my dad said, go to college. I went to college. Then I got out of college. And I said, what do I do now, Dad? And Dad goes, get married. And you're just like, come on, man. And so people, they go through life through that robotic thing. Totally. And, you went through some issues maybe in your childhood, I'm guessing.
Oh, man. Totally. Yeah, we all do. Like, honestly, I believe that totally. Like, if anybody out there says that they don't have mental health issues, I'm kind of like, okay, do I really want to trust this person now? Because, I mean, there is an element of it that everybody struggles with a little bit of it in some way or another, right? So, and it's interesting that you were saying about childhood, because for me, right in the first chapter of my book, actually, I wrote about when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And it's kind of interesting because what I did was, with every chapter in my book, I focused on a pillar. And the pillar really is, maybe, for example, in my first chapter, it's truth. And then I had a struggle with the pillar. And the struggle was my perspective of the truth. It was skewed, right? Even at 5 years old, I was unintentionally inauthentic. I didn't even know what the meaning of authenticity was at that time, obviously. But this is the story behind it. And I've said this on other podcasts because it's just kind of a funny little story. But my aunt and my uncle, they actually took me to the fair at a really young age, like I say, and they put me on a Ferris wheel, and I got stuck at the top of the Ferris wheel, things creaking, I'm freaking out, I'm crying, losing my shit. And anyway, and I just didn't understand, how could my family members that love me actually put me on this Ferris wheel and traumatize the shit out of this little kid? And so years went by, and I said to my aunt, I said, Aunt Carol, like, why in God's name would you ever do something like that to a kid? And she said, Corey, oh my God. And she was like, she started laughing. And she said, I knew at the mall. She's like, I plugged a quarter in the thing. It was maybe 7 feet tall. You were just up there crying like a bitch. Right. And I think to myself, I just laughed about that. You know what happened with that? Believe it or not, it held me back. There was a fear inside of me of heights that held me back from doing the great things like maybe going parasailing or maybe skydiving or whatever. That fear, that anticipation of that always held me back. And until I figured that block out and got rid of that block, I wasn't able to do that. And so a couple of years ago, I jumped into Kawasan Falls in the Philippines from 15 meters high, and it was just like exhilarating. So, you know, just like these things that, I mean, that's living life, but then these blocks, these things hold you back from it sometimes. And we're all human. Like, we all have that in us. And so, you know, if you think that I have it all figured out, you're wrong. Like, I still have the inner critic that's inside of me every single day. We all do, right? I just have learned now that when that inner critic starts talking to me, I know how to actually deflect it. Like, that's the difference now, is that I'm aware. And I think that that's the biggest thing is awareness in general is just massive when it comes to this sort of stuff. And I think a lot of people regurgitate the same information. It's just over and over again. There's only so much you can say in the self-help realm, so to speak. But I'm just kind of coming in at a different angle, man. Like, you know, how many people do you know that have been in a male stripper for 25 years? First off, you know, like, I don't know anyone. Well, okay, you're my.
I only did like 15, I think.
Okay, well, if you need an agent from here forward, come talk to me. I'll hook you up. Take 15% of everything you make. But I'm just saying.
You know what's funny? That's a real joke I tell. When I used to go like to Christmas dinner with my friends, she's a real angel. She just recently got married, but she'd have what do they call it? Singles giving or something. It would be Thanksgiving dinner with single people. And we lived in Vegas, so, you know, everyone's single.
Oh, there you go.
And so she'd throw a huge spread with her and her family, and she's wonderful. She was one of my models, actually, with my agency about 20 years ago. And so any place I go where I can get away with a joke, you know, I clearly don't do this in board meetings and corporate events and consulting, but any place I can get away with a joke, I'll pull the straight man, and the people will be like, hey, let's go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves as who they are. They'll be like, hey, Chris, what do you do? And I'll be like, I'm just retired from being a male stripper. I'm from Chippendales. And, you know, we lived in Vegas, so it had some, you know, you could
credibility.
Get some credibility out of it. And yeah, I just quit last week, and I'm just looking for my next career and what I want to do. And I just played straight dead on. And people will like give me a double take, and they look at me. And of course, usually they start laughing. And I'm like, what the fuck you people, man? You don't believe I was a male stripper last week? Fuck you people. And of course they'd laugh more. So I've used that joke for years now. So
I love it.
But what were some of the things people are going to learn from your book and the lessons? Because like, what are some things that that's going to help them maybe in through some of your journeys, or maybe a favorite story you have?
Dude, there's so many stories in that thing because it's like 100,000 words, and it's just like, you know, it's just ridiculous. It took me almost 5 years to write it because it was because there's just so many, over 25 years, you know, there's a lot of mess in the message, right? Like, I mean, it's just, you know, especially doing that industry, right? Like I had dealt with, you know, the standards, the divorce and all that stuff. But really for me, it was a lot to do with addictions too, right? Like it's everything from sex addiction to drug addiction, if you want to know the honest goods on that one. Because I mean, I went through, I really focus a lot on relationships in the book, because relationships and really creating great memories are kind of what life's all about in the first place in my eyes. So, you know, I had my struggles when it came down to that, and I didn't really understand why I had the struggles until long after, and I was able to connect the dots. So what I mean by that is through the writing process, I was able to go back and go, okay, like when I went through my divorce, for example, I had this lack of creativity. It really took away my feeling of excitement. So that aspect of myself changed in comparison to the guy she married 8 years before. So was it completely her fault in our breakup? No. I realized that I started to use the thumb instead of always using the finger and pointing blame at everyone else. So that kind of came with the territory with not just my marriage, but just even my professional relationships, where I was always trying to be a perfectionist. I was really always kind of just that guy that was looking at everybody else and comparing myself and all that. And that's a slippery slope, right? And a lot of us out there in this world do that, especially with social media and stuff. It's an airbrushed world, right? If you're not owning up, you're not keeping up with the Joneses, that inner critic starts getting stronger and stronger. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, I'm just this. And, I think I'm just going to go ahead and, just give up. And it's it's one of those things that, that is one of the biggest things that I learned was through the writing process, was really focusing in on those values, literally writing those values down, and then attaching the feelings that those values have, attaching the feelings to those values. And so that I know when I'm the opposite of one of those feelings, if you're keeping up with me, when I'm the opposite of one of those feelings, I'm actually in the really wrong place. I'm actually in a very inauthentic place. So I can actually pinpoint and go back to, say, for example, if I'm feeling disconnected, well, relationships for me give me connection. So if I'm feeling disconnected, I have to go back to one of my relationships and go, okay, is it my girlfriend? Is it my mom? Is it my boss? Who is it in my life that is a relationship that is kind of not right now? And I need to go back there and talk to them and really kind of try to iron that out to feel back connected again. So I guess, like I said, it really comes back to, for me anyways, by connecting those dots, I became a far better version of myself. And the guy that I used to look in the mirror at, that had the perfect body, that was Mr. Nude Western Canada at one time, that placed second in Mr. Nude Canada, all that good stuff, that had all that status, that guy that I looked at in the mirror before, I didn't love that guy. Now, the guy that I look in the mirror now, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it, because I'm more of a complete package. I don't just focus on the exterior. I actually now am completely connected with the inner work, and now I can be better next time. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. That's just bullshit.
Yeah, there's no,
right?
There's
This
no,
is bullshit. But
there's people.
Right?
I used to think I had a perfect run in life, and I was batting 1,000, and suddenly the ball started fouling, and I was like, business. I smacked like 4 or 5 home runs in a row,
nice.
And my board and people were like, "You're the home run kid," and I thought I was, and that was probably the moment I started thinking I was probably when I went off the rail.
That's right. That's right.
And we did have a lot on our plate. There's only so much we could handle. Running 3 companies is kind of dumb when it really comes down to it. Trying to be CEO of so many different things. But even then, it wasn't healthy. And, it's whatever. I had good partners, and that's kind of what got me through some of it. But, sweet, people learn from their journeys. You talked about relationships and stuff. I don't know if you went through this journey, but what I find is a lot of men have lost their space. There's no space for men to tribe up and go hunting together and do stuff. When I grew up, my grandfather, my father would take us fishing. We'd do guy stuff. With Boy Scouts and stuff. We go do stuff. Even in my younger years, us as men, we go do stuff. Like, we didn't really do fishing, but we go do stuff. Yeah. And, men have lost bars. They've lost all the different avenues they have to have. About the only time they can do man stuff is they're relegated to the dirtiest part of their house in the garage. And a lot of men don't keep relationships with other men, especially once they get married or they get into a thing. And I find that that's a real problem. I notice in my gamer community, keeping men together is a real thing. And I think a lot of men really, especially if they alienate all their men friends, because I've had that over all my years of being single. My male friends will come to me and they'll be like, "Hey, Chris, I got my girlfriend or my new wife, and she says I can't hang out with you anymore. And, cause you're that single guy and you always got girls around and stuff, you're that evil single, influence single guy. And so, I have to go hang out with the married people now, and then of course 2 years later they call me and they're like, "Oh, I'm single again. She cheated on me." And I'm like, dude, you're a fucking idiot, man. You take care of your guy friends. So I don't know what you think, but in my opinion, one of the problems men have nowadays is they don't keep their men friends around. They don't keep their tribe, and we're hunters. We're tribalists. There's things that only men can talk about with each other and do things. And we don't even have to talk to each other. You can go fishing all day with your friend and say 5 words to them and you bond with them.
That's like what you just said has a lot to do with why I'm actually moving into the realm that I'm moving into, because it is something that it's not, I don't like to use the word underfunded, but it actually is something that is not really addressed. Yeah. And so when it comes down to even here in Canada, right, like 3 of 4 suicides right now are men. There's a reason why. Right? Like there really is. And it's not just because of COVID. Like I understand that COVID is a component of it, because when you're going to try to be the hunter gatherer and you're not able to gather as much as you could before, that can be very detrimental to your head. But I think that when it comes down to that emotional connection, I get that. Like, man, when you're talking about like fishing and going with your folks and doing that sort of stuff, how essential that is. For me, I really relate to that because I was raised by my grandfather. So my grandfather passed away at 97 years old a couple of years ago, and he was World War II vet. He was programmed to have no emotion whatsoever. He had, mental health issues in his family background way back in the Depression era, where people were obviously dealing with a lot worse situations than we are right now even. So when you can't comprehend some of the stuff that person went through, but guess what does happen? They pass down some really great tools to you as far as morality, integrity. They have all those great things that that greatest generation had, but they also pass down some of those other things that those lack. The perception of money being evil, put it under your mattress to save it for a rainy day, right? Like all those things that are just embedded. And so when I talk about emotional disconnection, the reason why I'm so deeply into that is because I am at fault just as bad or worse than anybody for it, because I literally followed the same path as the person that raised me and tried to get into a marriage and be basically a Ricky and Lucy relationship in the year 2000, which didn't work out so freaking well, right? So just saying, like I tripped over, I fell many times, but I got back up and wanted to work on it. I was willing. Right. So, and that's liberating when you're willing. I didn't want to be in a position, Chris, where I was going to live my life and be on my deathbed and not actually truly experience life on that level. I really wanted that higher state of consciousness. So I'm willing to work to get there. And I'm not there yet. Like I still have to work on things, right? Like I'm always trying my best to be better. But at the same time, I realize why those things happened now. And so it's just a matter of being aware of what it was that caused that in my head to start with, so that I can go, okay, now I know what not to do. And that doesn't take away from my love for my family, like deep love for my family. I don't have to agree with what they necessarily did, but I can still have love for them, right? It's just one of those things where I truly realized that he had his faults, but he was a great man. I looked up to him. He was like Superman to me in a lot of ways. And I looked up to him on his pedestal. And that was my problem with a lot of relationships, was I was always looking up at somebody on their pedestal, or I was looking down from mine. And I was never really looking them in the eye. I was never really kind of trying to understand this other person that I was talking to. And I think that has a lot to do with some of the issues even in the world right now, where we're always right. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. Black and white, tribal. And I'm just kind of that person now that goes, hey man, I may completely disagree with you. I just want to try to understand you. Like I want to get in that head of yours for a few minutes and figure that out. And so even if I disagree still, we can move on. I can at least get why you feel the way you do, right? Maybe you were born in the southern US and I was born up here in Canada. You've seen life through a different lens. That's cool. At least I know now. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of been my thing with this whole authenticity journey, is just trying to understand others and get into their head. And that's what a true authentic leader wants to do, really.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, men commit suicide 3 to 4 times the amount of women. We go through a lot of stuff and we carry a lot of load because we have to be providers. We have to bring stuff to the table. And, there's a lot of stuff that men go through. I recently talked about this with what Kanye West is going through. And clearly I'm an old classic rocker. I'm not into rap. I mean, rap's music, but I'm Led Zeppelin and Metallica. Right. I mean, sorry. My bad. It's just you grow up in what you grow up in.
Yeah, we're on the same team.
Whatever age, I mean, if you're young, you like rap. If you grew up in my age, you like classic rock. But, you can call me old all day long, whatever you want.
Hey, you're not old. You're just older. You're just older, not old.
We had the best music. In fact, rap steals our music and samples.
That's right.
So that tells you how great our music was.
That's right.
So, but Kanye West, he's been going through a lot of issues with, his divorce. And I've seen this, if you've dated any single mom, especially one that got divorced like I have, you've had a divorced dad very unhappy with you. And sometimes you've had threats of violence and different things. So I had some women's splainers that came on and started telling me, oh, Kanye West, he just has mental health problems. And I will agree with that. I think the man probably needs to see a psychiatrist, and maybe get off, I don't know, whatever he's on. But aside from that, all I see is a man going through what most men go through when they divorce, because they lose access to their kids. They're used to tucking their kids in. And there's so many men that I've said, you have a real problem with that, your wife or girlfriend. You need to get rid of her. You need to get the hell out of that situation. Because men complicate themselves with all stupid stuff, Captain Save-A-Ho and everything else they do. And they'll be like, Chris, I can't. I want to still be able to tuck my kids in at night. And sadly, in some of these relationships, they're being blackmailed with that danger that they'll lose access to their kids, and they just know what happens.
That's
but
heavy.
yeah,
heavy.
And so
really heavy.
These guys commit suicide at a very high rate, and partially is most of the men that come to me that are having trouble with manhood issues like that, and what they're dealing with is, I'm like, dude, you let go of your tribe. You have nothing to fall back on.
That's
so
right.
You're alone.
That's right.
So it's important that, what you're doing is stuff, helping men understand what they're going through and stuff, and their self-worth and their value. I see this all the time with women in magazines and everything else. They're always told, know your value, honey, know your value, which is good. That's good. You should know your value. But men aren't raised with the same sort of thing. And men, I'll talk to men and say, you need to know your value, man. And you know your worth, and you're worth a whole lot more than you think you are. And you need to stand up for that and put up boundaries and lines.
Amen to that. Yeah. I relate to that big time, Chris, because I was in a status role, not necessarily a status role like some of the actors or maybe musicians that are out there that I've looked up to on their pedestal before, but we're all just humans, right? And a lot of those people that I've looked up to, like the Michael Hutchinses of the world, or the Chester Benningtons of the world, or the Chris Cornells or whatever, right? Like, I would give anything to have had maybe 1 minute in their shoes to be up on that stage hitting those notes that they were hitting and that amazing talent that they had, but I don't know what it was like inside their head. And a lot of people didn't know what it was like inside my head either. So that's what when I'm talking to that guy out there that's 30 or so years old that's struggling with this shit, basically all I'm trying to say is hey man, we're not that far off. We're really not. Like, I was this stripper for all these years, and I worked in like the largest beach club in North America, and I had all this freaking fame and all this bullshit, right? And I was up on this billboard, and it was like still mind blowing to me. I look back on it, and I'm like, did that really happen? But at the same time, I had the same struggles, man. And where I'll tell you what, to be honest with you, I was so emotionally disconnected, and I was so hungry for emotion that when I left my family, my friends, and everything that I had here in Canada to go and pursue this dream of going to work in the US and work down in Florida at this massive club, when I walked into that scenario, I actually had never touched a drug in my life. Like, I maybe had a 6-pack of beer at a party when I was in my teens. But all of a sudden I walk into this club and it was like, one of my friends is like, pop this little ecstasy pill and see what happens. And next thing you know, I'm like, that open door to emotion just goes boom. And like, all of a sudden it was like I hadn't eaten food. I'd eaten food all my life, but I'd never really tasted it. And all of a sudden I could taste it. And it was just like, holy shit. So I went deep. And I had a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but that door that I opened up didn't take me anywhere that I wanted to go. It didn't take me to the place I was looking for, right? Like, so now it's more so that even when I do what I do now and I make an impact on someone, even if it's somebody that actually says, hey, you know what, you kind of talked me down from some shit or whatever it might be, that gives me that little bit of juice that I actually got from taking that ecstasy pill back down there. That gives me that little bit of goosebumps as somebody that doesn't do any of that stuff anymore. Like, it's long gone in my past now, but it still gives me that little bit of freaking excitement inside of me because I feel like I'm helping out somebody to actually have a better quality of life. And I've been on the ledge before, right? Like, I went through my divorce shit too. I didn't have kids, but I went through some pretty heavy divorce stuff, and I couldn't go back to my home in Florida. I lost my car, my house, everything I had down there. And so like, I was like a country song, literally sitting up here in Canada trying to rebuild my life at 38 years old, right? And I had to start from a bag. Really, living in my aunt's basement. Wow. So, when you lose it all and it's all gone, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this in his writings as far as Power Now and all that stuff, when you lose it all and you get stripped down naked in a different way, and you have nothing left, that's when you actually kind of get to that point where if you can still say, hey, I'm okay with who I am, I can still build myself from here. That's where it really kind of starts from. And so for me, that was my journey of like, it just changed my life when I went through that. It was the hardest shit I've ever gone through, but I'm so glad that I did. And I'm grateful for it now, like literally grateful for the pain and struggle that I went through. Right. Because I couldn't relate to other people unless I did.
Yeah.
So.
Men have to show up successful, guys will date, guys will wife up a woman who's under a bridge, living under a viaduct with no teeth and no makeup. That's what we'll do. But if you're a man, you got to show up to be a provider. You got to have a job. You got to have a car. You got to have a house. You can't be living in your mom's basement. You got to show up and you've got to compete with, 50,000 other men that are chasing one woman at a time. It seems like these days.
Well, especially when there's other strippers like yourself out there that I have to compete with, and that's a whole other story.
I had that problem for so many years. I feel you on that.
Man, the competition's strong.
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
competition's strong and long. I'm not sure what that means.
But I will say that I finished all the stories in my book years ago, but the reason why I went into a different realm with this book and actually tried to make it more into a personal development side is that I wanted to actually write those stories and then reveal my naked truth, all part of my branding, of course, at the end of every chapter. So that's like my undrug hazed, accountable, freaking responsible side that's coming out at 50 years old going, hey, you really screwed up here, man. This is a life lesson that you can pass on to someone else, right? Yeah. And so that's where I think that I have something unique. It's just a little bit different than the way that a regular biography could be written, I guess. So yeah, it's an interesting read.
I went through the same journey you did, where at 50 I started waking up to stuff. And it's people might say, well, why do you know more at 50 than you know at 30 or 20 or something like that? At 50, you have a path of wreckage and successes that you can look back on, and you can see the trajectory. You can see the path. You can see your footsteps down the path, and you go, yeah, that wasn't my best choice. Like anytime I meet someone who said, you hear that phrase, they go, if you go back and change anything, would you change anything? I don't trust people that say they wouldn't go back and change anything.
Oh, I've said that before myself. I've so said that before myself. I hate it when people say I have no regrets. I'm like, bullshit, you have no regrets.
Yeah, no regrets. Yes, come on, man. I mean, I've said some mean people the things that, even years later, I'm like, God, what an asshole I was when I did that. And if you don't, a life that's, I forget the quote, but a life that's on thing. But at 50, you can see the wreckage. You can see, 30, 40 years of, you're like, maybe I should have got some help when I was 20. Someone asked me, they're like, what would you have told your 16-year-old self? I would have been like, go see a psychiatrist. Like, no. I had really bad ADHD. I'd check the door like 20 times a night to see if it was locked, that sort of thing. I really needed some mental help for anxiety, and I later got it, but that was after I really hit the wall, murdered like 10,000 people or something. And the judge says, you can't do that anymore. That's just a joke, people. Don't do that. And I didn't do that. People are right now looking at my criminal records. You can look back and there's so much to learn from it. And sadly, I've had people say, would you want to go back and be 20 again, Chris? And I'm like, only if I can take everything I learned.
Totally. I agree. I so agree. Like I've always said that about take me back to my high school graduation year. Oh my God. Scary. But no, what I was going to say on that though, actually is what's really cool, which is what I've been able to do in a couple of situations where I was inauthentic with people in my past. And I think there was a movie about this. Maybe it was Jim Carrey that did it in some way. I can't remember which one, but when you go back, I think it was Liar, Liar. I think that was the one. Oh, yeah. But when you go back and you actually speak to someone that you went through that shit with, and you played the blame game and you were being inauthentic, I've actually gone back to them and healed those relationships I never dreamed could ever be healed, but was able to do it from using my thumb. And that's really an amazing feeling, actually. It's something I never thought I would actually be able to do, but through this process, I've been able to do that. So that's why, again, right? It's just something that I'm so driven to help others out to do, because it feels so bloody good. It just really does, and
it really does. And having that reconciliation, and then you grow so much from it. I'll meet people and they'll talk about their exes, like, I hate this person and they are so horrible and blah, 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 blah. And, I reconciled a long time ago, that stuff. In fact, I'm really thankful for everything I learned from all my girlfriends. I was engaged twice. Yeah, I mean, I didn't make some good choices of people. I dated an alcoholic at one point, but she was a wonderful woman, and she was trying the best she could with genetically she gotten. But now I look back, and if I ever bumped into any of my old girlfriends, I'd thank them. I'd be just like, thanks for, and I'd probably apologize for being an asshole. I did my 50% of asshole.
But you're probably meaning it. You're probably authentically meaning it now when you would be saying that to that person. Like, you actually are saying that from the heart, right? Like, that's a difference. Like, So I have a question for you though, Chris, actually, because I revealed one of my fears that was driven off of the Ferris wheel, right? And like, that was something that affected me as a little kid. Did you have anything from when you were a kid, like young, that you carried a fear of some sort into your adulthood? Was there something that you can think of that maybe that held you back from doing certain things? I mean, I know you've been really successful, but I mean, is there anything maybe just personally that had held you back?
There was trauma. There was Chester Benningfield trauma.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Him and I share some shit.
Wow.
So
man.
not to his extent, but yeah, he resonates a lot with me, and I was really upset when he died. I photographed him at LinkedIn concert, and trauma, and you deal with that and you carry that, and now you can look back and you can go, I probably should have talked to somebody about that scene. But I brought that all out and brought it onto my Facebook one day, and
good for you.
Getting the poison out. I saw Leaving Neverland, and that helped. And
really?
So, yeah, that really helped. Because I hadn't seen myself as a victim, and I didn't want to. So there's that. But yeah, that had an effect. But people learn this stuff, and you might be able to say that some of the arc of my life was from that. But I don't know, man. I had a good time.
Well, but straight up, like, I got to give you credit for that, because a lot of people aren't willing to go there, right? Like, that's cool. I give kudos to that in a big way, right? I mean, because like I say, you could hear it in Chester's writing. You could hear it. I didn't realize it until after he passed away, right? Like, I didn't get it, but
I didn't know why he resonated with me so much. I'm like, why does this, crawling in my skin?
Yeah, right.
I didn't know why that was
what I've done.
Yeah, what I've done. A lot of his songs and the anger and emotion. But so I saw on the Oprah show after Leaving Neverland, and the guy got up who'd been, I think, an NFL star, and he'd written a book, and he said, the poison that you keep inside you is the secrets that you keep inside you is a poison that kills you.
Shit,
But I mean, these are the things you have in your life, and I advise anybody who has trauma as a child, please go get help. Go to a psychiatrist, and I probably should have spent 10 years as a psychiatrist. I think people still see me now; they still see my Facebook post. He still needs help, but this is the journey. This is the story of life, a collection of stories and lessons, and hopefully, we all live a life where we learn from them. Because if you don't, I can't imagine getting to the end of my life and not learning shit.
Oh man, I'll say this. Trent Shelton is actually one of my favorite people as far as in the self-help game. And one thing that always resonated with me that he said is people that focus so much on their freaking birthday all the time. Like, why are you focusing on your birthday so much? You should be focusing on your death day. Like, and I'm not talking about physical death. I'm talking about your death day. Like, are you walking around on this freaking planet dead? Because I know a lot of people that are my age or our age, so to speak, that are. And they might have all the money on the planet. That's cool. But at the same time, like, just because you have the most toys doesn't necessarily mean you're the happiest. And like, really, I've known there was one man that I met when I was in Florida. It was one of my good friends down there. I mean, God, he was worth $43 million at that time back 15 years ago. And he was one of the saddest people I've ever met. And it was shitty. I mean, we sat there and drank wine on a Friday night, and he was in tears because he was like hiring call girls for the weekend because he didn't have any love in his life, right? And I mean,
you say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, whatever your flavor, but I'm just saying, he was actually envying me at the time because I was married, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you got so much going on." I'm thinking to myself, "I'll take the friggin' yacht that you have out in your front yard. I'll trade you the wife for the yacht if you're open to it." But no.
I lived in Vegas for 20 years. I got a lot of girls that are call girls. I got a lot of girls that Spirit Rhino, and it used to be OGs back in the day, and Sapphires and stuff. A lot of my models from Utah went to work for them. So, I mean, I kind of understand the other side of your business, the female side of your business.
Oh,
but
do I ever?
I'm working out though now. I started working out for the first time in my whole life, going to the gym every day. I've been doing that for 7 or 8 months now. I began August 4th, so somebody count that. But I've been working out, and I'm getting in shape, and I'm going to be on that Thunder Down Under stage in Vegas next year.
Well, I got a recommendation for you, man. When you do it, I got a little hint for you. I'm going to give you a little tidbit. All you have to do is if you don't have your abs fully set by then, just go ahead and get a razor and shave them in. Just shave the ab lines in, and it'll actually make them stand out more.
I'm fairly hairy, so I can pull it off.
Yeah, you can pull it off, man. You could do it. So,
yeah. So I just got to make sure it's warm in the place. So
there you go. Yeah, man. No, it's funny too. Like I said, you were talking about female dancers, and they're probably misunderstood a lot of the time because they have to deal with the male mentality, right? Like they're dealing with the guy that's sitting there eating his hamburger in the front row, going, "Oh yeah, her ass is too big," being all critical. I don't like her outfit. And you're sitting there like, these girls are out there hustling their asses off, working all day, just trying to make a buck, right? Whereas on the other side of it for me, I was like Mr. Ladies Night out there, and the women are there just to take it, yelling, "Take it off, baby." And they're out there just to have a good time with their friends.
They were treating you like a piece of meat?
Oh,
women
God,
were?
There was even a place one time that I worked in. I worked at a club in frickin' Houston, Texas, that actually had a place that had a big stage. Like we all stood up there, and it was called the meat rack, literally. And girls would come up and pick guys off the meat rack to do private shows. I lasted 2 days. I was out of there. Couldn't even do it. No.
The meat
rack. No lie. Wow. It was horrible. And that was a year after I won Mr. Nude Western Canada, so it was kind of a downgrade. It was like, it was not a good thing. So, yeah, I had a lot of ups and downs, my friend. Lots of ups and downs.
That's crazy. Yeah, I've had friends that have gone to that. My buddies' wives, they'll go with a crew of girls, and like, Chris, you have no idea how much women like really go crazy at those things. And I've always kind of half wanted to go. But then, I don't want someone to see me there and be like, whatever.
Hey, why are you here?
I'm not judging anybody. But in fact, one of my friends in Beverly Hills, we used to party a lot back in the day. David Harrison Levi. I don't know if you know him, but I think he was the vice president of Chippendales for a long time. And I think he helped build it, really. But yeah, he's a wonderful guy, really super nice and just an angel of a man. Does all these charities now, does all this, you name it. He's an honorary charitable dude to all of it. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. And so anytime people know that I'm friends with him, because he had Chippendales, and then I do my strip club jokes, people start looking at me like, "Were you a dancer?" I've got at least a couple people that are seriously convinced there's photos of me somewhere working for Chippendales.
No, man.
I just run with it.
You can start charging for that on the side and make you some money, man.
I should make that a bucket list thing. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to go fully nude, but a thong and go up and I wear Magnum XLs. I can probably pull it off. I don't know. Stuck an extra sock in there because I'm 50. I don't know. But
dude, I never thought that I could, and I really never thought that I could. The first time I ever saw a male dancer here in Canada taking it all off and going like full Monty, I was like, "There's no freaking way I could do that." But I was mentored by the number one dancer in Canada. Next thing you know, I was out there freaking giving her, and all I can say is 10 years later after that, it was like, here I was, my career was started in the industry, and I never gave up on it because I actually enjoyed it. Like people go, "Oh, were you like exploited and brought into this because you started at 17 years old?" And I was like, no, in fact, it was just a random story that I ended up knowing somebody that was a couple of years older than I was at Bounce at a nightclub, and he let me in, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm hired on as a topless waiter going to high school, taking my gear off on Tuesdays and Thursdays and making money. And my folks were like, "You know what? The kid's making money. As long as he's not screwed up on drugs and he keeps his grades up, let him fill his boots." And that was what happened. And I just kept doing it. It's crazy.
I think it'd be funny just to do it once. Just to see how crazy women get at those things. I've just heard about it, but and then Magic Mike's kind of made it popular. That Magic Mike movie or whatever. I think there's like a third or fourth one coming out now, and it'd be fun just to go do it. I'd be like that. I'd be like what's his face from Tommy Boy, that SNL skit.
Oh, you mean David Spade?
Not David Spade, but Chris Farley did it.
Yeah, with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, I remember seeing that live for the first time on SNL. I was on the floor. Good. I couldn't breathe. I pissed myself so hard.
Yeah, it was so good.
That would be me on the stage.
I'll tell you this: if you were to just make my life, if you were to go, okay, which 3 movies represented my life, it would be Joe Dirt, Forrest Gump, and Magic Mike. You throw all 3 of those together, you got me, man.
You got me. That's a hell of a roll, man.
That's a hell of a roll. Yeah.
There you go. So all right, funny, man. Well, it's been fun to have you on, Corey, and I'm glad you're using your vast knowledge and your experience and your stories of your life to help other people. Give us your plug so people can find you on the interwebs, man.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, I'm on Instagram. Basically, it's just Corey _ Hilton. So it's not, that's HILTON COREY. Corey Hilton, basically on Facebook. But the main place to catch me really is on my website. Like if you subscribe to my website, you can get discounted rates on my courses, on the book. And you can even chat with me on there, and it's not a bot. Like you'll actually truly get through to me, believe it or not. So yeah, that's the best place realistically right now. And it's just under development. Like as of April 1st, my courses are being launched. So I'm really excited about that side of things, Chris, because like, yeah, the book's one thing, but it's really the launch pad of what I really want to do with the rest of my life. And if I can really, like I say, be providing video courses and courses where they can cross-reference with my book and have a little bit of fun with this whole personal development journey at the same time, it's just a different angle, right? And I just really believe that by showing myself to somebody and them showing themselves, it's just more of a, I guess you could say, a trust that I have between those people and everybody that I actually work with. It's completely confidential as well. So it's just something that, you're not in any jeopardy. You're not in any position that you're going to be getting in any shit with anybody for opening up, maybe something that has happened in your past with me anyways. So, because I'm just trying to help other people out. Like I said, if it's a matter of, I can honestly say that if I didn't have the disconnection issues that I had, I probably would have lived a lot better first half of my life. So I just want to be able to help other people not to be so bloody disconnected in this world of disconnection and connection that we have right now.
I feel you. I probably would have drank all of that. That would have been better for me. And everything I used to eat, all the crap I used to eat that I'm still wearing, but I'm getting rid of it. It's been wonderful to have on the show, Corey, and it's been incredibly fun too, as well. Yeah. So thank you for coming on. Folks, order up the book. You can go on Amazon, wherever fine books are sold. Take it off, Revelations of a Male Exotic Dancer. And I think if they order it from you directly on your website, they get an autographed copy, don't they? Yeah, signed copy. I will even put, for your particular audience, I will do it as Voss code, all small letters, VOSSCODE. Get a 20% discount on the courses or the book. So that's cool. And then on top of that, like you said, Amazon, Barnes & Noble in the States, and Chapters Indigo here in Canada. So yeah, this place you can get it. There you go. And then I'm not going to do that joke.
Go for it.
No. I was going to say, can people order like thongs in you and stuff like that? And
that's so funny you said that. I was actually looking at making bookmarks. Oh my God. And I want to do dirty ones and clean ones. And the dirty ones are they're going to be, you know what shape they're going to be. And then on the bookmark, and then the other side, you flip it over and it's a ruler. Frickin' perfect. Perfect, man. That's where I want to go with it.
I made a few porn star female friends in Clubhouse during, when everyone was locked down. And I met Eric Everhart, who's in the porn business. He's been on the show with his book and he coaches people. And I met a few women that do the same thing. And they do the selling the underwear thing. It was kind of interesting to hear, hey, everything's a business, man. I mean, that's how I look at it. So, marketing and, if somebody's buying it. So if you want to blame somebody, anything or whatever, you want to pull some moral card, pull it on the people buying it. If there wasn't a market, no one would do it. But
I know you have to go, but I will say this, the most reviews that I've gotten on Amazon have all been from women, believe it or not. And it's a book that's based to help men, but they've all been like, I need to actually get my man to read this frickin' thing.
Holy crap, you're right.
They need to figure this out.
Holy crap, you're right.
Yeah. It's all women. And that's the funniest part of the whole thing. I'm sitting here going like, are you kidding me? So yeah, it's kind of cool. Like, but it just hasn't gotten out there, right? Like the book hasn't gotten out there as far as it needs to go. So hence why I'm here, man. I want to be able to let the world know. So
yeah, you're not even kidding, man. I'm looking over your reviews.
So crazy. Crazy. It's all women.
Well, there you go. You got your fan base.
Awesome, man.
Anyway, thanks to my audience for tuning in. Thanks to Corey for being here. Go check out his book, of course. Go on goodreads.com/Chris Voss. You can see my book and order it up. My books. You can also go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to have so many great authors on this year. I think we're approaching the new 1 million mark that we're hitting, and then also another 1,000 shows. Also go to all our groups, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all those different things. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.